This year's Mandela Day is being celebrated under very difficult conditions. It comes after a week of violent and deadly insurrection in Gauteng as well as KwaZulu-Natal. At least 212 people were killed. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now by Shanila Mohammed, Executive Director at Amnesty International South Africa, as well as Dr. Sipho Pityana, Business Unity South Africa President, joins me for this discussion as well. Thank you so much to the both of you for your time this evening. Perhaps, Dr. Pityana, let's start off with you. This Mandela Day has required a lot of reflection. Perhaps one thing to note is just how fragile this democracy actually is. Your thoughts on that? Hi, Dr. Pityana. Just unmute yourself and then we can continue with our conversation. Do we have you now?
Thank you. Apologies. Can you hear me?
No, that's fine. We can hear you
loud. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we've got you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Well, Faith, good evening to you and your viewers. Indeed, this Mandela Day comes when a dark cloud hangs over our democratic project, one that is our founder of our nation, whom we celebrate every year, with great effort and dedication and sacrifice, helped us deliver a free South Africa. And indeed, it is upon us to ensure that those who are seeking to undermine that great achievement do not succeed in their attempts.
Yeah, Shanila, also government has admitted that they were ill-prepared for this insurgence or insurrection. So just how intelligent is our intelligence? I mean, just looking at what transpired within the past few weeks, one wonders whether or not we're sitting ducks for any disruption lurking in the darkness.
Good evening, Faith, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, it appears that the government was totally, I mean, the president himself admitted that they were caught totally by surprise. They were overwhelmed. Now, that is worrying to, for South Africans to hear, for the simple reason that, many South Africans were anticipating something following the incarceration of Jacob Zuma. And to hear that the government was overwhelmed and was unprepared is unacceptable, especially, Faith, as we're sitting here today on Nelson Mandela Day with 200 people plus who have lost their lives in the past 10 days or so.
Yeah, but then, Dr. Pityana, just building on from what Shanila is just saying, it's one thing for government to admit the fact that they were caught off guard and that they did not have the necessary resources to be able to see this. But it's another thing to let it get out of control. And one wonders till today, why was not enough done to at least intervene where we saw that people were looting? The police just looked overwhelmed, law enforcement looked overwhelmed, and just one wonders exactly what is government doing at this point, and is it truly really strong enough to withstand any form of insurrection?
Well, Faith, I'd like to remind the viewers that in March of this year, about 200 South African citizens gathered to launch a campaign called Defend Our Democracy. And in the statement that we issued on that day, we warned that there are signs of state increasing inability to protect its citizens. And these have caused great anxiety amongst the people. The restiveness in the population has grown as various institutions of government have been severely tested, some to breaking point. So not only did these 200 individuals who don't have the complex machinery and resources that the state has foresee that there was a threat to our democracy posed by people who have over a period of time been systematically engaged in undermining the state system, and that as the net of the law was drawing closer and closer, they were getting to employ desperate measures. And because we could see that the state was not readying itself for that, we called on the people to defend our democracy and mobilize. And various organizations have since swelled the ranks of this movement. There is no substitute. A democratic government has got the wherewithal to ensure that we defend this democracy with everything that we have.
Yeah, but then what would it take to actually practically defend this democracy? Because, Shanila, one would say this democracy is under threat of inequality, that as long as you keep ignoring the poor in our society and just, pointing towards third forces and being able to instigate a threat to this democracy, then we're being naive, that the inequality in our system is the one that is a true threat to our democracy. And is there even political will to be able to speak to the very same inequalities that exist within our society?
Well, Faith, the fact that that with this unfolding lawlessness and looting, etc., that we saw so many people out onto the streets means that people have genuine grievances, and it's very easy to instrumentalize people who are already suffering. So South Africa has massive inequalities. We've seen, the unemployment rate go to up to 32.6%, and with this looting, 50,000 more jobs are going to be lost, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers. We've seen over 10 million people who are reported to be starving. So even before the looting, even before COVID, we had a government that did not deal with the socioeconomic challenges in this country in an effective way. And as a result, we're seeing what we saw today. And you're absolutely right. The biggest threat to this country is actually the socioeconomic challenges and the fact that the majority of the people in this country are not living lives that are with dignity and, where they are accessing their basic human rights. People don't have water, they don't have housing, etc. But the one thing that, is very clear also is that the state has also been very, very lax in dealing with issues of violence in the past. And so this is why we have this whole issue of impunity, where even today we saw in Hammersdale where, as soon as the police disappeared, the looters and the arsonists came back again. And again, if you go back to the history, when there has been violence in this country, like attacks on xenophobia against foreigners, other protest attacks, there's been very little will on the part of the government to deal with this. So what we're sitting with, Faith, is actually a mess. We have a country where the people are suffering, and we also have a state that is incapable of delivering what it's supposed to, even when it comes to the safety and security of the nation.
And of course, Dr. Pikana, when we're speaking about the mess in government, we need not forget that the ruling party is indeed part of this government, the African National Congress. In your opinion, the ANC as it currently stands with its infighting, when its factions inside of it, is it truly strong enough to help lead the South Africa towards a better position, towards a better dispensation, if would be?
Well, Faith, I want to start by disabusing each other of the idea that the architects of this insurrection and chaos and mayhem in our country are somewhat champions of the poor and advocates of equality in society. After all, they disabled the state, they siphoned off resources that the state intended to address the lot of the poor, and ensured that the resources are taken to greedy individual networks that extend beyond our borders, and that money is siphoned off from schools that are built for the poor, from hospitals, housing, and all kinds of infrastructure that would boost this economy to enable it to employ more people. So they have been the architects of programs that have been intended to undermine everything that the government has been driving to, in fact, reverse the inequalities in society. So these are not champions of the cause of the poor. Yes,
would former President Jacob Zuma,
yes,
Doctor, very quickly, would former President Jacob Zuma be part of the they?
Well, it's quite clear. I mean, the point that we make in our Defend Our Democracy campaign is very clear. We make the point much early on that these people have now gotten to a desperate point. It's very clear there is a litany of evidence that has been put in full display to South African public through the Zondo Commission, the SARS Commission, and many others, that resources that would have changed the lot of the poor in this country were taken away and stolen by these very same people. And now they are organizing systematic undermining of the authority of the state and launching very amateurish insurrection that has caused a great deal of mayhem because they disabled the institutions of the state such that it's not able to respond to what they've been doing in the recent period. So we shouldn't confuse the cause of the poor. Of course, we must deal with inequalities in society. Of course, we must deal with addressing the needs of poor people. But we must accept that what we've been faced with in the last week is work of dark forces that are seeking to undermine our democracy. They are no champions of the poor. They are not about equality in society. If anything, they are the ones who have stolen from the poor. They are the ones who have denied the opportunity and prospect that this democracy offers to the poor to ensure that there's equality in society by taking resources that are intended for the poor, for their families, their loved ones, their friends, and their networks internationally. They must be brought to book, even though they challenge the authority of our courts, of our state, and they seek to unseat a democratically elected government. The people must not allow it to happen. They are not a legitimate force. They are a force that do not have regard for the will of the people.
Got you. We're going to leave it there, Dr. Pikana, Amnesty International South Africa, Shanila Mohammed, as well as Sipho Pikana, President of Business Unity South Africa, on exactly what does it mean to be celebrating this Mandela Day and how do we rebuild this country forward. We're going to take a quick ad break. When we return, let's tell you a little bit about COVID-19 as well as some tours, and we've got lots more in store for you. Do stay with us.